It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible. Over the place.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge. I believe this is going to be our final sound.
Just when I think you said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
My kind of magic is automatic. I feel like dancing. I feel like dancing. Even if it's raining.
Guess who's back?
I feel like dancing.
The troublesome tandem has returned to the studio. It is producer Adam Lundy. I am Brett Rump. We are back with the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. It's been a while. It's been a week and a half since we've been in here having a live show, but man, have things added up and a ton to talk about on this Monday edition. You can always weigh in your thoughts on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. Also, we're taking your comments on our Facebook live stream. That's right. You can actually watch the show today as well as listen. If you'd like to see the video show, you can go to facebook.com/1380thefan and find our video streaming there. It is live from the studio, and you can leave your comments. We will see them. We'll respond to them this afternoon because, again, there is so much to talk about on this Monday. A week and a half of sports. The Colts have been busy. They've been active. The Pacers, what a win over the Milwaukee Bucks last week. Of course, we only remember the wins. We aren't going to remember the losses. The NCAA tournament, shoot, we've been through a couple of conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament selection show. So, it's been busy, Adam. We've missed a lot, but we're glad to be back and talking about it today.
Oh, it's great to be back. And like you said, we could probably talk for about the next 6 or 7 hours, maybe 8 if we wanted to, just with all the content that we've missed over the past week or so. Just so much has happened. So
I'm clumsy. I haven't been here for a while. And the first thing I do is roll my chair over my headphone cord and about rip my head off.
Hey, for your defense, it's in a different spot than your usual.
That's right. I had to it really makes things off for me. I'm kind of like OCD somewhat.
Creature of habit.
Well, I am. It's like if it's not plugged into the right plug, and I don't go through the same routine, it throws my entire show off. But we're ready. We're ready to roll.
Been ready.
We had a bye week last week. They gave us a bye week.
Yeah, it's one of those times where we have a little bit of rest in between games, but we're back and ready now.
Well, if you got a bye last week, you had to earn it. So apparently we earned the bye last week and had the entire week off. But let us know what your thoughts are on the sports week or what's happened recently. Of course, a lot of buzz about last night's selection process because Indiana was not one of the teams selected for the field of 68. And so we'll discuss that coming up on the show.
We've got to. There's a lot of upset Hoosier fans out there probably wanting to get a word in on that.
We've got brackets.
We do have brackets.
Okay, now I had people asking last night, and I was a little bit lost because I went on a website and I couldn't find the bracket.
Yeah.
Now, and it isn't that I was looking for the bracket because the bracket hadn't been announced. What I was looking for was to be able to pre-register, and then that way I get the email reminders that the bracket's posted. You can make your picks. But I can tell you this, if you're listening right now, there is a bracket. You have to go to 1380thefan.com, go to the contest page, or just look for the promo slider that slides across the top of our website, our homepage, and then fill out who you would like to see win or who you think will win. And how do you fill out your bracket? Do you fill it out from the Final Four and then backwards, or do you go every game of the first? See,
I kind of go by region. I go by region.
I look for the 4 or 5 teams that I think are hot, that have the best chance to advance. And I find them and I put them in to advance. Because I don't want to get hung up on a a round of 16 or the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. I don't want to get hung up and say, oh, no, I didn't know they were going to run into that team. Because if I truly think they're going to be one of the Final Four teams, I want to put them in as one of my Final Four teams. And I know who they play along the way can make a difference, but I find that my brackets are usually better when I weight them to the finish. Plus, those games at the end, they're more valuable than the games at the beginning. At the beginning, you can lose 5, 6, 7, 8 games and still be in the running to win it as long as your teams that you have advancing through the first weekend aren't the ones getting knocked off. You don't want one loss to become 2 losses. So if you got a team that's going to go 3 wins and they get beat in the first game, then you start to get in some trouble. But if all of your first round losses are teams that you had losing in the second round anyway, it only cost you a point. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, you really want to eliminate the possibility just of having a whole leg of your bracket just kind of completely wiped out by having one of those early losses. And then you just lose out on an insane amount of points, and then you're cooked, as the kids say.
I like to watch 5-12 has always been popular. 6-11, those matchups. I'll tell you what, Drake, how did they put them as an 11th seed?
I don't know, man. They're talking down on the Bulldogs, not putting enough respect on that Drake Bulldog team.
30 wins this season. 30 wins. They're 30-3.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the most popular upset picks throughout brackets.
Well, I can tell you. First of all, we get Whiskers to make our listener picks.
Oh, we know. Although Mizzou is the Tigers, they both have whiskers.
Oh, they both have whiskers.
Oh.
See, for those of you that haven't kept up, Whiskers every year will call in to make some picks on our listeners bracket. And he picks winners based on which mascot has whiskers. Yeah. And that's his name. It goes by Whiskers.
We actually have already gotten a text about it today. Somebody said it's March, which means we are due for an all whiskers bracket. And it's not even whiskers. I know your number, so it's
yeah. Well,
people know what time it is.
Well, because when he did that, he made some pretty outrageous picks, and I think he actually got a couple of them right.
Yeah, I think it was the Lobos, wasn't it? That went pretty far.
Yeah, I don't remember who he had. Of course, Owls, FAU, they don't have whiskers, so he didn't pick FAU to make a run. FAU is, I believe, in the NIT.
Oh, okay.
They're in one of those secondary tournaments. Let's see, the Auburn Tigers. Well, that would be a popular one.
Yeah. A lot of them have them winning it all.
Then you've got the Battle of the Birds.
Yeah.
I'm just looking to see how many we might as well just write in on our bracket.
There's a lot of talk about Louisville.
Cardinals and Blue Jays.
Yeah, and the thing is, if Louisville is to beat Creighton and Auburn wins their matchup against the 16, then it would be...
You got Louisville and Auburn.
And it would be in Kentucky. That's the big thing.
At Lexington.
Yeah, in Lexington.
Does Louisville get a home court in Lexington even? I don't know.
I still think they would get more than Auburn.
Yeah.
They come up from Georgia.
It's convenient for their fans, but any local fans obviously would not necessarily cheer for Louisville.
Might be more Wildcats, yeah.
It's kind of like your two favorite teams are your team and the team that plays Kentucky or whatever. It's that kind of a thing. Let's see. Michigan. Got the Wolverines. I don't know what UC San Diego. Is that that's not the Sombreros?
Are they the Gauchos?
Gauchos, maybe. Yeah, something like that. So, of course, the Gauchos got a mustache, right?
Oh, yeah. They're the UCD. The mascot is a Triton, King Triton.
I don't know if does he have a whisker? Does he have whiskers?
I don't think so. I think he's just a dude, although he does have a beard. So does that count as whiskers?
Okay, we've got Boilermakers and High Point. What's High Point?
They're the Panthers. They have whiskers.
Uh-oh. I'll tell you what, that's a matchup that I fear. If you're a Boilermaker fan, I would be concerned. High Point finished in their conference number 1 in defensive efficiency, number 1 in offensive efficiency. So it's a team that can play some pretty disciplined basketball.
No question. They're 1 win away from 30 wins on the season, too. So look out, Purdue fans. It might be another year of an early upset.
Might have to sweat that. And the bad thing is it's the very first, one of the very first games. It's second or third tip-off of the entire tournament.
12:40.
12:40 this Thursday, Purdue will play High Point, which means by the end of the completion of the first round of games, I'm not saying round meaning all 32 games. I'm talking about the first games of the first round being completed, and Indiana might not have a basketball team still alive.
That's tough. Yeah, not a whole lot of representation from the state here.
Well, no Notre Dame, no IU.
No.
No Butler.
They're in the college one. They're in the Fox one, I believe.
Are they?
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at that bracket. I got so busy with brackets last night because I'm watching the CBI,
sure,
the CIT.
I don't know if there is one.
The women's brackets. Yeah. I'm following along with all these secondary tournaments, trying to see which teams from the Horizon or teams from the MAC area teams might be going somewhere. Let's see. Butler is going to play Utah.
All right, the Utes. We talked about them a little bit.
Now, this tournament's a short tournament.
Yes, it is.
So it doesn't start until Monday, March 31st.
Late
That's
tournament.
2 weeks from today.
Yep.
So all of these teams will have, 2 to 2.5 weeks off before they play.
Enjoy watching the other tournaments first, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, but the thing is, the long break, are you going to get good basketball?
That's true. How much effort and dedication and conditioning.
Well, it's just you're breaking the routine. I mean, they've been used to playing every third or fourth day all year long, and all of a sudden now you give them a 2-week break and then tell them they come back and have to play games on back-to-back. Well, I guess they're not back-to-back because they have 2 sets of games. They either open on Monday, March 31st, or the other 8 teams play on April 1st in that Fox.
April
What are
Fools.
they calling that? The college basketball crown.
It's the crown. It's the royal crown. But, yeah, should be interesting there. You got Butler. You got Nebraska out of the Big Ten. And USC out of the Big Ten. They're taking on Tulane.
So Mastodons had a game.
They did have a game.
They had a game. It's hard to believe because since the season ended, there's been like 2 rounds of Horizon League tournament. There's been an NCAA selection show. There's been a couple of big names enter the portal. And the Mastodons lost at Youngstown State, and almost was a miraculous comeback, fell short. Mastodons were down and out, 15 points out of it with, about 4 minutes left, maybe 5 minutes. It's hard to remember. 4 or 5 minutes left, they're down 15. And all of a sudden, they started to stage the comeback on the road at Youngstown State, got it down to 1 point. And it was funny because a lot of the crowd had already headed for the exits.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Mastodons hit a couple of buckets, and then Quentin Morton-Robertson got hot and hit like back-to-back triples. Next thing you know, it's down to like a 4 or 5 point game. All those fans stopped in full winter garb. I mean, they had their jackets, their stocking caps, because it was a cold night. And they stopped at the exits and came back. And so the corners of the gymnasium were packed with people as the Mastodons staged a huge rally, but unfortunately for the Dons, Youngstown State was able to hold on and end the Mastodon season. Of course, the Mastodons had offers to go to a postseason tournament, and they respectfully declined because Jalen Jackson has made the decision to enter the transfer portal. And it's just part of college basketball today. When you establish yourself as a high-valued player at the mid-major level, that means money, that means opportunity, and it's just a situation where a mid-major can't compete. Now, mid-major can compete with giving you the best stage to showcase your skills and to perhaps become a professional player, because that's the risk you take, is that you're going to get paid off for the next year, but you're not going to get the same stage you had at the mid-major level to showcase all of the skills as far as your passing, your ball handling, your ability to go in and rebound, because you don't have that same kind of freedom and you're not that kind of player at the higher level. You're not the star. You're not the total go-to guy that has the ball in his hands all the time. And so that's what he risks. But as his reward, he'll probably have a pretty nice payday. Probably much more than what the Mastodons could offer, although the Mastodons, I understand, we're putting together a really good package to try to entice him. But it's mid-major money versus high-major money, and there's a big difference there. And so he is entering the portal, and we'll look at his opportunities and likely be playing elsewhere next year.
Yeah.
And so he would not be available. Well, you take him out of the equation, and then Chandler Cuttrell also entering the transfer portal. And so that's 2 of the top 6, 7 guys on the roster. And so it's just, if you can't put together a competitive team, what's the point in investing in playing postseason basketball? And so the Mastodons have shut the door on the 24-25 season. And unfortunately, what it does mean is the Mastodons end the season 1 win short of making it a 20-win season. 19 wins, and they got stuck on it because at one point, what were they, 18-8, 18-7, 18-8, and then they ended up losing 5 of their last 6 to close out the season, finishing with 19 wins. Kind of a disappointing end to such a promising beginning, but the Mastodons really have a good opportunity, and we'll talk more about that, how sometimes adversity presents opportunity. And in this case, they already knew they were going to have to be working deep into the portal and maybe even bringing in another freshman or 2. They've already got one 6'10" guy that is committed for next year, but getting perhaps a couple of guys out of the portal, maybe another freshman, because they've got plenty of scholarships to fill. And so this doesn't change a whole lot, but it gives them an opportunity for a roster revamp, and I think they needed that because they were kind of stuck with a short lineup. They couldn't change that because their best players were all like 6'2" and under, and then you had 6'8" guys that weren't really bigs. They were guys that wanted to play perimeter guard-oriented or outside shooting. I mean, more like a shooting guard and a small forward rather than having power forwards. And the Mastodons, just by the way they play, need to have 4s that can convert as 5s, as a stretch 5. Mm-hmm. So they've got to be able to go in, match up defensively against another team's post player, and then be able on the other end to stretch that post player away from the basket with their ability to shoot outside. That's ideal. But when those guys are not going to be able to guard the post at one end, you completely blow that up. So it might be a chance at some roster reconstruction, putting together the roster maybe with more balance, with players that fit what you really need a little bit more than what the Dons had this year. You know, the Dons for the last 2 seasons have been among the 5 smallest lineups in the entire NCAA Division I basketball. And so this will be a roster revamp, a chance to get longer, taller, and see where it goes from there. 260-447-8500. Let's go ahead and find out what else is happening in the world of sports today. It's today's top headlines with Adam Lundy.
All right, thanks, Brett. Well, taking a look at the final AP standings for men's basketball released today ahead of the tournament later this week. The Big Ten teams that made it in are Michigan State at 8, Wisconsin at 13, Michigan at 14, Purdue at 22, and Oregon at 25. Your final top 5 in the AP poll for this year is Duke, Houston, Florida, Auburn, and St. John's, respectively. New Colts safety Cameron Bynum, who came over from the Minnesota Vikings, talked to media today about the potential of the new look Colts secondary. Quote, "I think we'll be great. I know we'll be great. I already talked to a few of the guys, and I know when Mooney and Shavarius Ward came in here, he talked about the same thing. So things are shaping up on the secondary." And taking a look at an AFC rival down south, Derek Stingley and the Houston Texans have agreed to a 3-year, $90 million extension that makes him the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. The deal includes $89 million guaranteed. And that's a look at some of your today's top stories, Brett.
Coming up on the show, it is Monday, and we bring back Don Fisher for our 15 Minutes with Fish. And, of course, we're going to talk about the situation of Indiana being left out of the tournament and how the Hoosiers managed to let victory slip from their grasp, because all they really needed, and really the game against Oregon was a play-in game for the Indiana Hoosiers. Mm-hmm. You win, you're in. There's no doubt about it. You're taking full control of your own destiny. We said it. Of course, we didn't say it last week because we weren't here saying anything. But we have said that it would take one win in the Big Ten tournament, depending on the results of what they did on their West Coast trip in the home game against Ohio State. They were in a perfect position where they controlled their destiny. All they needed was that one win in the Big Ten tournament, taking on a team that they competed pretty well against on the road just 10 days prior, and unfortunately, they didn't get it done. They lost to Oregon for a second time, and that was enough to convince the committee that they did not belong in the field. And if you're an Indiana fan, you can't complain a whole lot. Now, you can complain about the process of picking the final teams and whether committee chair that is the athletic director at one of the schools that is truly on the bubble, if that's proper to have that position and that power bestowed upon someone who has personal gain involved or tied into it, because he did get, from what I heard, a possible bonus in his contract for the men's basketball team making it into the national tournament. But Indiana doesn't have an argument because they held their own destiny. And there's no question, if they'd have beaten Oregon, they were going to be in the tournament. I don't think there's a doubt about that. But when you look at where Indiana was in the net, the fact that Indiana, when they had the chance early in the season to give themselves a good, solid net position, because from that point then, when you get into the conference play, it's hard to do much with your net ranking because you're playing all tough teams in your conference. And so it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, but everybody's kind of bunched together. So where you really make your move in the net is in that non-conference schedule. How many of the top opponents did you play and how many did you beat? And Indiana's record against the top opponents they played in November and December was not good. And that left them scrambling at the back end of the season, and they didn't get the job done. They had it right in front of them. All they had to do was beat Oregon, one of two. Whether you beat them out there, you beat them almost in your own backyard in Indianapolis in the Big Ten tournament. Indiana didn't get it done.
No, they honestly looked a little bit flat-footed in that game against Oregon. I didn't see the effort.
Yeah, you've got the first four, and for Indiana, it was like the pre-four. Because it's like the four before the first four. That was the game against Oregon that they had to win.
Yeah.
And once they lost that, everything was in the hands of the committee. It was also in the hands of what everybody else that was on the bubble did that night. And a couple of the teams that were on the bubble won, and as a result, they got in. Because I'll tell you this, the evidence is pretty clear, and we'll talk more about it, but the evidence is pretty clear that the NCAA committee that chose this bracket and chose this field, this bracket was almost done by Friday morning at the latest.
Yeah, I think a lot of these late games didn't put in much play into the decision to making at all.
No, we've got to talk about what needs to be done to fix that, because the fact that Michigan goes out and earns a Big Ten tournament title and ends up with a 5th seed.
That's crazy.
Below Purdue, below Maryland. Teams they beat.
Yeah, wins over both of them, so I don't know.
And yet they end up with a lower seed. Something has to be done. And the problem is, right now, the committee isn't getting enough time between some of the high-profile tournaments and when they actually announce the bracket. And because of that, you end up with situations like what Michigan is encountering. Who else? There was somebody else that I thought got a raw deal on a seed.
Ooh.
I think they were in possibly an 8-9 game. I'll have to take a look.
We'll take a look during the break.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But once again, you can join us on Facebook. We got a couple of Facebook comments we'll get to.
Oh, yeah.
And also, we have Don Fisher coming up in hour number 2. It is a Monday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. We really should have thought about this when we positioned the camera, that we only have a chance to put one or the other of us on our Facebook live stream. And for some strange reason, we've picked me.
It's your show.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing the majority of the talking, but the people are asking Adam. The Adam Lundy fan club is weighing in. They want to get Adam on the shot.
Oh no,
that's going to take some new technology, and hopefully the new studio.
Yeah.
When we eventually move in, will give us the technology to put both of us into our stream.
Yes, but we do have a good crowd hanging out with us today on the Facebook stream. Lots of comments, lots of people just chilling.
Yeah, they've been waiting a long time
Chomping at the
for us
bit.
to get back on here. So we've got plenty of things to talk about coming up on the show. Don Fisher joins us in hour number 2. Coming up Thursday and Friday, it's more fun with the Sports Rush. We hope you make plans to join us as we'll watch the games on multiple television screens. So we'll be watching all the games all at the same time. That's the way you watch March Madness. And we're going to be doing it at Winner's Circle out in New Haven this Thursday and Friday. It is the Sports Rush on the road, 4 to 6 both days. We hope you stop by and see us. We'll actually be cutting into the radio broadcast of those games just so that we can follow the games on television and give you our thoughts on what's happening with the NCAA tournament. That's coming up Thursday and Friday. We get to go back out and see our buddy Brian out in New Haven at the corner of Minnick and Highway 930 East.
Yeah.
Near 469. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump off 469.
Oh, it's super convenient to get to, and like you said, it's super fun and literally the best place to watch college basketball. Wall-to-wall TVs. You can watch every single game at the same time. You don't have to have your old TV from the garage sitting next to your flat screen in the living room on a folding table. None of that.
Well, during the regular season, I always have a game on the TV and a game on my laptop, and so I'm always multitasking with 2 games at once.
Don't need to.
No, I can have 4 games at once.
And some delicious food specials.
Oh, yeah. They've got the food specials. We always enjoy the food specials.
Got to take advantage of the food specials.
And we'd like to enjoy the drink specials because those are pretty darn impressive as well. 225 beers.
Forget about it, man.
You got the buckets of beers will be on sale, so you can bring some friends or bring the office or.
And wait, we didn't even mention you can put a little something on the games too.
Oh yeah, and you can get paid out in cash right after the game ends. You don't have to wait for transfers. So it's a big day coming up Thursday, Friday at Winner's Circle in New Haven. They're in the Lutheran Health Plaza at the corner of Minnick Road and Highway. I don't know if that's Highway 30 or 930. I always get confused why they added a 9 to the front of it.
Oh, I have no idea.
But you know where it is.
And you know where to be Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, we hope you all come out because generally, I don't know for a fact what they will have, but every time we've been out there, Winner's Circle has boxes of goodies.
Oh, they always take great care of anybody.
To give away.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people just come in and it's like you walk through the line and grab what you want. And, we give away tons of stuff.
I mean, I can tell you just off the top of my head, Colts T-shirts, Winner's Circle T-shirts, Colts hoodies, Harrah's hoodies.
Oh, and the stocking caps.
With the little beanie.
Didn't we have drinking water bottles or something?
Yeah, like igloo thermoses.
Yeah.
All the good stuff.
All kinds of stuff that we've given away just for people stopping by and seeing us. And that's Thursday and Friday at the Winner's Circle. Join us with the Sports Rush live on location. When's the last time we did a live show? I don't even remember.
Oh, man, it was probably the last time we were out there.
It might be.
Yeah.
Might be. They don't let us out of our cage here very often.
No, they don't. If you want to get a look at our cage, we're live on Facebook today, facebook.com/1380thefan. We're hanging out in the cage.
Just thought about something.
Yeah.
If you look at the Facebook Live, you can see me and you can see the big window. It does look like we're in a zoo.
Yeah, we're in our
Like
exhibit.
we're an exhibit at the zoo here.
Yeah, it's our habitat, our little zoo exhibit. You can come by.
Big window. You walk down the hall, you can look in and be right behind me looking at my bald spot.
See the gorillas here.
All right, so last night, this is not about IU. As I said, IU, they didn't deserve to get in. They did not do anything that set them apart or separated them from the pack of the bubble. And so they were left squarely on the bubble that could have gone either way. I know a lot of the people that were doing bracketology were putting Indiana in, but there's plenty of reasons if you wanted to make the argument of why Indiana should be out, starting with a bad net ranking. They had among one of the worst net rankings among all teams on the bubble, and that really was because Indiana didn't beat enough good teams.
Right.
Their record against quad one teams, not that impressive. What was it, 4 wins that they had? I was trying to see if it was on this sheet that you gave me, but They did not have a great record against Quad 1. Now, they didn't have a bad loss. So you could also, if you're trying to make the argument that Indiana should be in the field, you could say, well, they didn't lose to anybody that they should have beaten. That's true. They didn't have a bad loss. But they didn't have a marquee win. Well, they didn't in the preseason. I'm talking non-conference. They did get the win against Michigan State, the win against Purdue. But then that win against Purdue kind of lost a little bit of luster because Purdue went on a little bit of a skid and lost to other teams too. But,
right.
But still, if you're the committee, you want to see a team that when given the opportunity steps up and says, okay, I've got the opportunity to make my impression and I'm going to do that right now. And Indiana was on that stage, had that spotlight, and they failed. They didn't get the job done. All they had to do was beat Oregon and virtually a home game being played in Indianapolis.
Yep, and like I said, I wasn't happy with the effort that I saw from the Hoosiers in that game down in Indy.
The effort wasn't there. The
desire to win. It didn't feel like it was
they
there.
didn't. I mean, they didn't hit shots either. And I mean, if you're not hitting shots, sometimes that deflates the effort. So you're not sure which comes first. But Luke Goody never did hit a shot. He was 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. Trey Galloway, he got some points, but my gosh, he took 18 shots. Is Trey Galloway the guy on that Indiana roster you want taking 18 shots, or would you rather it be Renew or Ballo?
Well, in this game, I definitely would have rather it been Renew. He was actually doing very well off the bench, 8 of 15, 19 points, leading scorer. So, yeah, don't want it in Trey Galloway's hand.
Yeah, and, Galloway's one of those guys who was stepping up, trying to hit the big shot, trying to be the hero, and it just, it's kind of the story of Galloway's career. Always wanting to be maybe one step better than he actually was.
Yeah, and you can appreciate the effort, but you can also recognize someone that's trying to do things beyond their means.
260-447-8500. It's an opportunity for you to weigh in on our Parkview Sports Medicine text line. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/1380 The Fan. And you can make your comments there. We would love to hear from you. Already, 11 comments in our first half hour. So,
oh, yeah, people are tuning in.
Love to have you weigh in. But Indiana controlled their destiny and just didn't get the job done. And now, I do think that is a serious problem. And I don't know if you can excuse yourself as the chair of the selection committee when it's your team that has to be evaluated as the last team in the field. Because the committee admitted the last team to make it into the field of 68 was North Carolina, and the chair of the selection committee was the North Carolina athletic director.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
Isn't that special?
Yeah, and he does the whole, I stepped out, I wasn't part of the selection. But it's like people know who you are and they know who the chairman is, and I think you do have a little bit of influence over that board.
And I don't even know if Indiana's the one that's got the argument against UNC.
No, it might be West Virginia.
West Virginia may have the stronger argument or the stronger case because West Virginia actually was the first team that was out of the field. So Indiana wasn't even the first team out.
No. And it's gotten so bad that even West Virginia's governor has written a formal letter to the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee. It's West Virginia.
They don't have anything else to do, so they might as well write letters.
Well, like you said, they were 19-13, and they had 6 Quad 1 wins this season, but they lost their opening game in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah,
so.
And then you've got who else was in the running? Well, Texas. I don't know what Texas did to make it into the tournament, other than the fact they moved into the SEC, which apparently
that gets you in.
Yeah,
You're
apparently.
14, yeah.
Apparently, that certainly helps. Greg Sankey has done a great job of PR to get his teams in the field.
My goodness.
Because they got 14 in the field, and the previous record from any one conference was it 11 or 12?
I don't know. I can see what I'll find out.
I mean, it wasn't like they just edged the record. No, they significantly beat the record. I thought it was 11 as the previous high before.
Let's see. The previous record was the Big East in 2011 when 11 of their 16 teams got in.
Yeah.
So
you go from 11 being the all-time record in the field to 14, and the 14th team is the one, well, not really, because North Carolina is not in the SEC. But Texas, we can question. They're part of the SEC.
Sure can.
Other news from yesterday, of course, the brackets started falling. And, the problem with these brackets coming out so fast after the final game of the conference tournaments, which they try to get all these conference tournaments jammed into that weekend so it all builds up to the big announcement of the selections. But the problem is the two do not go hand in hand.
No.
What we're watching with Michigan making the run and earning a Big Ten title and then getting stuck with a 5 seed looks really bad when you see it back to back.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do we fix that? I mean, what can be done? I mean, unless you, number one, move up all the conference tournaments so that they're all done early. But then that would mean that you'd have to give up some TV time over the weekend, and nobody wants to give up the TV time because that's where the money is. So then the question is, do we have to pick the teams on Sunday? What if we pick the teams on Monday night? Gave the committee an extra 24 hours to reevaluate based on results that they saw on Sunday, and don't start the tournament until Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's literally all you would need is just one more day, 24 hours for this committee to evaluate what happened in these late conference tournament finals and then adjust from there. I think you'd see a lot better bracket.
And then everybody who's, playing hooky and missing work, or everybody that is taking days off that they don't need to take.
A lot of sick days.
With the tournament starting on Saturday and continuing on Sunday. Now you've got those 2 long days of the tournament on the weekend. So you could select on Monday night. You could make a big drama and a big primetime special with a selection show on Monday night.
Yeah.
And then turn around and start the tournament on, the first 4 would actually be on Thursday then. You'd have the first 4 on Thursday and Friday. The tournament then, the full round of the tournament would be Saturday, Sunday. Now, I don't know how you'd work out the rest of it because I haven't gotten that far into it. But I do think that this process, even the committee admitted that by Friday they had the brackets done.
Yeah.
And they had to do some tweaking. 260-447-8500. What do you think of the idea of maybe giving the committee a little bit more time to really evaluate the results, the full results of the conference tournaments?
Let us know, 260-447-8500 or on Facebook. A couple texts that did come in. Somebody asked, do you think it was because Woodson is leaving and his heart wasn't in the game in regards to their loss to Oregon?
No.
Or not being selected?
No, because this wasn't anything that was new for IU.
The committee already knew about that. So.
Well, no, what I'm saying is
that too, yeah.
I don't think the selection was based on Woodson.
No.
I think it was based on the result of what Indiana did on the court. And what they did on the court was not anything new. We saw this all year long, pretty similar product from the Indiana Hoosiers. Times you question their effort. Ballo not dominating around the basket like he probably should. So I don't think Woodson became a factor in the decision. Now, the other thing you get to when you talk about the Hoosiers and that fact is Indiana making a mistake by not participating in the NIT? Got a deadbeat coach. Last time they had the opportunity, they did the same thing. But is it disrespectful to the college basketball where you make millions and millions and millions of dollars to basically be NCAA or bust? And everybody wants to go back to Bobby Knight's days, right? Everybody wants to refer to, the way Bobby did it, the way, they all want to relive the glory days of Indiana basketball. Mm-hmm. But Indiana basketball under Bobby Knight, he played in the NIT.
He sure did.
He did not pass up those opportunities. And that's, my question is, as an Indiana fan, are you okay with that decision?
Yeah, I've actually seen some speculation that part of the reason that they didn't choose to go into any of the postseason tournaments is so they could start transfer portal for their players sooner.
Well, and that's the question, because that's the situation that the Mastodons got into, is they found out a couple of players were planning on entering the portal, and it's like, okay, if you're going to enter the portal and we're not going to have you available, why are we going through the expense as a mid-major where it's not really built into the budget? You don't have a ton of money just sitting around to be able to fly around the country and play these games. And so you have that situation. But on the other hand, is the season, do you consider the season over before you finish any tournaments that you've earned? I mean, that's the whole point of playing the regular season, is to earn a prestigious spot in an NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament for most, yes. The NIT, I understand. It's not what the ultimate goal was, but it does give you a second chance. And maybe after a disappointing season, winning an NIT title might be some salvation. Do you want to live with the regret that you've got that you didn't make the tournament and your season came to a real thud? It ended with a thud. Or do you want to take that opportunity and try to, again, when you face adversity, turn it into a positive and play the NIT? I don't know, because I'm kind of mixed on that, on whether or not Indiana should play with the coaching situation as it is. But I want to get your thoughts. Let us know at 260-447-8500, or you can always leave a comment on our Facebook live stream that you can watch the show, and you can comment there by going to facebook.com/1380thefan. We've got to get in a break. We're coming back. Plenty more on this Monday edition, including Don Fisher, who will join us coming up at 5:20. It's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Had a comment earlier that wanted to ask about me defending Coach Kaufman as the team continually, year after year, ends their season in disappointment. And let me just say this. In the mid-major level, it's one-bid leagues. One team out of the 11 or 12 that you have in your league is going to ultimately get the ticket at the end of the year. Everything else doesn't matter. If you're the other 11, it doesn't matter if you were the runner-up or if you were 12th. It doesn't. I mean, ultimately, you're playing for the ultimate prize. The Mastodons need to get to the big dance at some point. Yes, because they're one of the more elite programs, but there's a lot of Division I basketball programs that are, number one, highly competitive. Number two, well coached. Number three, recruit well. Number four, do it the right way. And yet they fall short. They don't quite get over the hump. I mean, when's the last time you watched Ball State playing in an NCAA tournament? And the point is, Ball State's had some really tough years with losing records. Those types of things, they happen at the mid-major level. Because, you don't have the kind of money to throw around to recruit guys. You don't have the same facilities that some of the high majors have, or even some of the high-level mid-majors. But the fact that out of his 11 years that he has spent coaching Purdue Fort Wayne, the local college that many people think of still as a local community college, 11 years, take out COVID year, because that was a mess from the beginning with what you did in practice and how there were teams that had to forfeit or cancel games at the last second. And then you got rerouted to a different site, played a team you didn't expect to play, and had to go in almost without a scout. I mean, it was just a crazy year. So take that year out. The other 10 years that Coach Kaufman has coached at Purdue Fort Wayne, 9 of the 10 have ended with winning records. And that is not easy to do at a mid-major program. 9 out of 10 with a winning record. And so, it's consistent success. It just isn't the ultimate prize. And you've got to remain hopeful that that is coming, because if you continue to be successful, eventually those chips fall your way. It's kind of like sitting at the poker table, and you're in every hand, and you keep getting beat up on the river. And it's like, are you playing bad poker? Is it just not your day with the cards? Sometimes that happens. But, yes, the coach is going to get a lot of the blame when you don't get that ultimate prize. But remember, it's 1 out of 11. 1 out of 11 that will actually get into the tournament. And there's a lot of teams in the Horizon League that would love to get the opportunity to do it. Youngstown State hasn't done it. Milwaukee back-to-back years, they've had a team that everybody thought was capable of going. They haven't made it.
A lot of teams, a lot of very good basketball teams. I mean, there's a lot of very good players that play all 4 years, that a lot of mid-majors that, go on to the next level that don't make an NCAA tournament just because it's just such a hard thing to do in a mid-major conference.
And the reality is, let's look at the women's program. They didn't make it.
No.
This was as good a year as there's ever been in women's basketball, Purdue Fort Wayne. But they ran into an absolute juggernaut in the Green Bay Phoenix, who had an experienced team. Just so happened that when the Mastodons had their best team in program history, Green Bay is sitting on a roster that has almost all seniors that have been a part of 3 straight runs to the championship game of the Horizon League and back-to-back tickets to the NCAA tournament. So, there's always those things. If you dissect it and say, okay, this is why, this happened. And, I think this year the biggest fault with the Mastodons is the roster just didn't pan out to be constructed like it needed to be. And you could say some of that's recruiting. Could say some of the guys didn't play like they expected them to play. However you want to define it, the Mastodons had some holes in their roster, and by the end of the season, when you're playing conference teams twice, they start to figure out where those holes are. And they took advantage of some of them. And the Mastodons couldn't overcome it simply by hitting more threes. There were some holes in the roster. And so I think the fact they're going to have the opportunity as a coaching staff to revamp the roster, I'd have a big whiteboard up in my office. If I was Coach Kaufman, I'd have a big whiteboard, and I would put 6'8", 225, big banger at the bottom, in the low block, rebounder, skilled defender, and put then a box for a check mark. It's like we're going after one of these guys, and we're going to get the best one out there. And then the next one to be 6'8", can rebound, can play at the wing, a 3-4 type of guy, might be a three-point shooter, and an excellent defender and rim protector. And let's put a check mark and go through all of the pieces that you feel will build the best possible roster for next year, because you got tons of opportunity to do it, because there's a lot of seniors that are graduating, and you've got a couple of guys that have entered the portal. This is really, the fact that so many players have continued to return year after year. Coach Kaufman hasn't had a chance to really maximize his use of the portal.
No, and I mean, there's going to be a lot of opportunity in this offseason to, retool and revamp the roster. So we'll see what they come up with for next season. But like you said, it's just hard.
And you know who some of the best teams in the Horizon League were this year? The teams that had to rebuild their entire roster.
Yeah.
The ones that were picked 6th, 7th, and I'm talking about Cleveland State, Youngstown State, Robert Morris. All 3 of those teams were teams that were picked by the so-called experts before the season started in the lower part of the Horizon League preseason because, they lost everybody.
And they were unknowns coming in, but those unknowns turned out to be huge.
Yes, and so Robert Morris, who had, I think, 1 returning player, that player turns out to be much improved this year, and the 4 players they put around him were fantastic, and they got great roster construction. They got a super point guard. They got a guy that can shoot. They got a banger inside at 6'6" that could play the post. He could play the wing. He could shoot from outside. They just put together a great complementary roster, and that roster came together by the time the last month of the season. And what they end up with 9 out of their last 10 or 10 out of their last 11 or something like that, and they won the league and then won the tournament. And so that's what the challenge is now for Coach Kaufman, because now he's got that opportunity to take advantage of what the portal can offer. And like I said, adversity brings opportunity. And in this case for the Mastodons, losing a guy like Jalen Jackson, who outplayed his position here at a mid-major, that's going to bring the opportunity to go find somebody and bring somebody bigger, better, and hopefully next year the Dons get right back to what they've done year after year under Coach Kaufman, and that's win basketball games and be competitive and be an entertaining brand to watch, because that's the one thing that's a constant. They're going to play fast, They're going to shoot threes. They're going to score points because that's never failed Coach Kaufman over his 11 years.
Certainly hasn't. Always been a high-scoring and fun team to watch, so we know that'll be coming back for next season.
260-447-8500, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Also, Facebook Live today. We are streaming. You can comment there. You can find us at facebook.com/1380thefan. And coming up at 5:20, it's the great Hall of Famer Don Fisher joining us for our 15 Minutes with Fish. You're checking out the Sports Rush on a Monday on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.